Excellent. Welcome, everyone. My name is Danielle Morrison and I'm from the Professional Partners. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us for our first virtual lunch for the year. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to work with the Professional Partners before, we work together with accountants to help create their own private equity division within their firms. So we work in the alternative asset space, working in what we call recession-proof industries such as childcare, aged care and primary health. We provide accountants a platform to give their clients the opportunity to look at investments they wouldn't ordinarily get access to. So 2020 saw the Professional Partners rolling out some amazing information for our accounting network. We had some really great events and also released our podcast and blog series. With the huge success 2020, we've really ramped it up for 2021 and got some amazing things to come. So following from that, I'd like to introduce our first guest for the year, Mr. Mike McHenry from Seamless SMSF, along with our host Paul Jansen from Partners. Gentlemen, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Danny. Mike, we are getting a little bit of feedback there from the crew. We might explain to everyone that's on the line that Mike is joining us from Queensland and he's at a golf resort and he's got a, here we go. He's getting ready to tee off in about it now.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've tried to find a quiet spot and inside was like a sauna and 2 hours for the aircon to kick in wasn't going to work. And now some of the lads have finished their round and they're raving about how they played. So yeah, hopefully they keep contained. But if it gets bad, Paul, just sing out and I'll just go for a wander, mate.
Yeah, fantastic. Just a couple of things that I want to share with people.
It's working beautifully.
Okay, sorry, we just had a couple of IT issues there, but just a couple of things I want to share before we get into Mike, and that is, yeah, well, it's a funny thing when you're living in Melbourne, and for those of us that are in Melbourne, I know we've got people joining us from Singapore, Bali, Perth, Queensland, all over the place. We were in obviously lockdown for a fair bit of time last year in Victoria, and we started this virtual lunch series, which was awesome. We started our podcast series, Talking Numbers. Mike, you were a part of that last year. We finished the year being voted #1 by Tax Talk in our podcast series, which was awesome as well. And this is all about what we always said was we wanted to just bring an educational piece to the accounting industry. And today's no different, whether it's the podcast, whether it's our Chewing the Accounting Fat I do with Jason Cunningham, or whether it's our virtual lunches that Dan and I host. The idea is that we want to bring something a little bit different to all of you, being our accountants throughout Australia, or now even I've got a few firms from Singapore joining us. And, you know, it's fantastic that, again, we've got great guests sharing great things. And this is the whole idea about having Mike on board. You know, I suppose when we did our podcast, we spoke about the sorts of little other things that we could do. And funnily enough, 2021 comes around like that and bang, February 11, and looks like Melbourne could be going into lockdown again for another 5 days. So hopefully we're not, but we'll put that on ice if we are. But mate, give us a bit of an idea about where you are.
Well, I'm at the Glades on the Gold Coast, about to play golf. But as a business, we started in 2014. We had about 300 odd funds, and now it sits probably around the 12,500 mark. So we've got a local team of about circa 35 full-time equivalents in our office. And really, I suppose I look back and say, well, what's been the game changer? Like what actually made this work? And really, that's why we're having this conversation, because I think when I had an accounting practice for a long time, I didn't really understand just how valuable what we're now doing in this business is. Probably the whole concept of a longer term vision, a whole concept of setting values, it was a bit wishy-washy. It was, it's all pie in the sky. That's all garbage. Okay, let's scratch those down and stick them on a wall and never revisit them. You know, it was a bit that. I probably had a bit of that attitude because I didn't see the real value in it. So, having left the accounting practice in 2011, and I transitioned for a couple of years, when I started this business, I just wanted to have fun. My whole focus was, we're not getting any younger. If I'm going to start something, I just want to have fun. And the only way to really do that is have people within the organisation that I actually enjoy being around. We're going to be together 8 hours a day. We got to be able to collaborate, have a good giggle. We got to have common interests, and go home thinking, I'm looking forward to going back to work tomorrow. And that's how I want. And that, not to say that it wasn't like that, because I had a lot of fun in the accounting practice too. But I think sometimes we can all agree the colour's yellow, but no one agrees on the shade of yellow. And we all have a different view or a different path that we should take. And then you have different profiles of people on how we should get there. And so then it can create some conflict, and we have different rules about standards. And then we have to make assumptions about, perceptions, and that just creates inherent problems. So this business, when I started, I thought I got an opportunity to start it the right way, set some really clear ground rules, set the framework. So as we build, anyone that comes on board sits within that. So that's sort of how it started, and that's sort of where we've gotten to.
And I think this is, look, and to everyone that's online, thank you for joining us again. There's been a few people that have just joined us, so we've just commenced. If you want to ask a question, we've got the Q&A section down the bottom there, so we will take questions at the end. I suppose the key thing that we'll be sharing a fair bit of information here, which so it is being recorded as well. So if you want a copy of it, please let us know. We're more than happy to send you a copy of it, and hopefully Mike's going to share a lot of little, what I call golden nuggets, or sort of little gems along the way. So hopefully, pad and pen, take it out and take as many notes as you like, but ask questions, please, along the way. You mentioned the great thing about, obviously, you had the opportunity to, let's say, restart the Seamless business after you moved on from the accounting firm, and that probably gave you the importance to see what is not being offered out there, and that's what you've been able to do with Seamless, which has been outstanding. And to your credit, and we work with a lot of accounting firms, I don't think I've had one firm say a bad thing about Seamless as a business, which is fantastic. So there's
a lot of bad stuff about me, but the business. That's
exactly right. We talk about individuals. I know TH is on the line as well. We won't talk about her.
No.
But I think we'll get a few messages come through now, though. I lost train of my thought.
Yeah, you haven't. The feedback's been positive, you were saying.
Yeah, but building a business is all about the people, obviously, that you bring into the business. Now, I know one of the things that we were chatting about in our podcast as well last year, we were talking about some key employees, and you mentioned Frank, and obviously a lot of people probably know Taryn as well.
Yep.
The TH we just said.
Yeah.
So, sort of tell us about how important the team are to what you've been able to establish and grow, and tell us a little bit about the team.
Yep, no worries. I think the big takeaway for any accounting firm or any business is don't employ unless you know exactly where you want to be and what sort of services you want to offer, and be really clear on your product, right? I mean, a lot of accounting firms don't even have, if you drew up their organisational structure, they don't even have a section to the side, which really should be in the bowels of the organisational structure of a marketing and a sales team. They don't have it because they actually think that you have to have a technical expert who goes out and sells. And that's just not the case, right? You're not there to sell people technical information. The consumer to an accounting firm already understands that you're supposed to be the best. And there's not one accounting firm, be it a struggling firm or a really prospering firm, that goes out and can prove to the consumer that one is better than the other. They don't do that, not unless they sit a test and say, hey, I'm technically better, right? So that doesn't happen. So why is it then that some firms prosper and others don't? Like, why is that? Now, not all of the prospering firms have a sales and marketing team. They don't, right? But we do. Now, when you start off, I had to wear every cap, right? So I answered the phone, I was reception. Then I'd send out an email. Then I'd have to do training for myself and for me and Frank. And then we had to build process. Then we had to, so it was ops, finance, everything. We were every element. And so then you try to put people on to over-resource. So I think the first part for me was, and before anyone even starts to think to expand or change their org structure, is you really have to be very clear on what services and how you want to drive your business. What's the end destination? You've got to start with the end in mind. And for me, I started with initially it was, hey, Paul, if I can have 500 funds, this old chestnut's going to be high-fiving himself. I'm going to be planting fives on the mirror. Because that was the metric I knew that I needed to sort of supplement the income that I'd lost, that I'd sold out of. And I needed to get to that point to sustain a lifestyle that was sustainable. Anything under that, it was going to be a bit difficult. But we built everything off the back of we needed 5,000 funds. What do we need for 5,000 funds? What personnel do we need? How do we get to 5,000 funds? What IT infrastructure do we need? How do we make visibility to the client and to us so that when we've got funds, they know where their funds are? So how do accounting firms know where their funds are when they use us? Well, how do we build an interface to make it easy? What value adds do accounting firms need that has nothing to do with a self-managed super fund audit, i.e. these sorts of things? Like, what can I give the accounting firms that's got nothing to do with an audit that they're going to say, I don't want to not use for my audits because we actually need them for these other things as well. And that was the angle. So knowing that we wanted to do these things and put marketing material together and everything that accountants could tap into, then it helped me design what people I needed. So then we get to the question you asked. So now what people do I actually need? So we had to put a knowledge base infrastructure in so that as we put people in, I had to be able to train them. My metric was I want them to be guns at self-managed super fund compliance. That is the rules around super within 12 months. How do I do that? So here's a little snippet that people could just go onto YouTube and just type in, I think it's 57-story building. Just type 57-story building in China and just see what comes up. And I show that, so there's a process we go through when we induct everyone, but my point is you've got to think big to then build process to allow for that to happen. And sometimes people when I went into this market said, look, you're mad going into this market. It's saturated, mate. There's auditors are a dime a dozen. I said, yeah, I understand that. But for me, it's not about doing the audit. It's about the other stuff. So accountants, you can't prove to the consumer you're a better, tax better than the bloke next to you or the woman next to you. You can't prove that. So what are you doing? What are you demonstrating to them? What value are you bringing to the table that's got nothing to do with tax? It might be personality. It might be enjoyment. It might be the networking opportunities that you create. It might be, contacts for applications. It might be that you become an expert in an industry gap, and you do everything within that industry. So if you want to target hospitality, maybe pick 5 hospitality groups, and then what are the needs of those hospitality groups? Now, it ain't tax. They go to you because you know tax. They need something else. They need help with people. They need help with. So the whole point of this is we have a lot of our clients, they come and fly to our office because we deal with firms all over the country, and they fly to our office in Geelong because they want to see how we do it. And it's actually really simple. There's nothing too complicated about it. So so the first thing is you got to work out what size business you want to have, and then you've got to ask yourself 3 questions. You ready for these? So the first question is, how do I want my colleagues to describe me? How do I want my colleagues to describe me? And the second question is, how do I want people to describe this business? So down the track, how do I want them to describe it? And you piped up, Paul, and said, I haven't heard anyone say a bad thing. I want people to describe our business and say it's outstanding. So then when I came up with how I want to be described, I want them to describe me as honest, up and about, having a crack, a good bloke, someone you can depend on, reliable, punctual. So then as a business, how do I want them to describe us? Well, I want them to say we're outstanding. I don't want to be very good. Very good, that bar's too low. So how do we do that? So then the third question is, what behaviours do we have to display to be that business? So then indirectly what we're building now is we're building our mission statement of what we want to be as a business. For us, our mission is we want to be an outstanding business and proud supporter to our clients. A business we can be proud of because of how we conduct ourselves in business, how we support our clients, and how we stick to our values. That is our mission. Now, not a lot of businesses can reel their mission off, right? Yeah. And we know it intimately because it's everything we do. And if you don't have a mission, you can put on really clever people. You can knock yourself out and get as many smart people as you want. But if people don't stick to those behaviours that you list, which are your values, well, you have internal conflict, you have disagreement, you don't have process, you don't have people aren't willing to leave their egos at the door. So that was the driver. So anyone that we employ, we sort of go through this process on, well, what questions do we ask them? You tell me if that's getting loud, because I can hear the guys are sort of starting to roar. We're good? That's why I got my hand up here too, just so you know, just so I'm trying to block them out a bit. Yeah. So when you've got some good people in your office, I never meet. So what's the traditional model to employ someone? You put an ad in the paper, you say, this is what we want. It's all technical driven. It's all really technical driven. Then the people come in and who do they meet? They meet technical people and they ask them technical questions. I believe if you've got really good system and process and you've got a really good rhythm and routine around your training, you should be able to train a monkey. Right? Now, yes, some people are inherently more clever and academically sharper than others. I get that. But I would rather have someone who puts their fist on their chest and gives me everything than someone who is half-assed and but is really, really clever.
Yeah.
Now, really clever, you can go somewhere else because I'll train people so that they don't miss a beat, but they give me everything they've got. Okay. So how do you find those people? So when you put an ad out, you want to make it interesting to get people in, but we always get our people in the office who are a really good judge of character, who understand our values really clearly, who just naturally fit into that value system, right? So we have a cup of coffee. They go and just so the person comes in, they've got their resume, they've got their suit on. I couldn't care if they came in thongs, right? Because I want to know, we want to know them. I want to know if I want to spend 8 hours a day with this person. You know, I don't want to go home and look for the knitting needles to drive into my eyeball because I've just had a horrible day with people who are just not my cup of tea, right? So I like sport. I like to interact. I like to have fun. I don't like to take ourselves too seriously. I just want it, and I want people who give me everything. I want people who want to win. So for us, so when we get a group of 3 people to have a coffee with them, it might be half an hour or so, and then they come and see me. Someone comes into my office or they buzz me and say, Mike, how'd it go? So do they pass one of the two? Do they pass one of the 2 tests? Okay, so the 2 tests are this: do they pass the team sport test, and do they pass the 2-hour beer test? So beer or coffee test, right? Like, can I sit with this person and just enjoy their company for a couple of hours and we've got things in common and we enjoy each other's company, right? That they show an interest in me and ask questions. We show an interest in them and ask questions. I want someone who's invested in people. Because if they're willing to ask questions and they feel comfortable in their own skin, well, then when they're learning and training, they're going to ask questions.
Yes.
But you know what they're also going to do, mate? They're going to get to know people really quickly. And when we know someone, we trust them. And when you trust them, you'll ask them questions. You'll be more prepared to be vulnerable. You'll be more prepared to say, hey, Paul, you know, this here, I'm doing this job. I just don't get it. And you go, mate, let's have a look, Mike. This is what it is. All right. And so here it is here. Oh, thanks. But if I don't know you, Paul, I'm going to be a bit reluctant to go and ask you a question in fear of feeling like a dickhead. You'll crunch my ego. Right. It creates a hierarchy of Paul's smarter than me.
Yes.
So you start to have, so what it does is having these types of people. Now, not everyone, you don't want everyone like that. You need a mix. But that's the first thing. So they've got to pass the 2-hour coffee test and they've got to pass someone just said, Andy. Yep, you're right, Andy, the beer test. And the other one is, do they pass the team sport test? So what's the relevance to that? It sounds wishy-washy, right? But what it means is if I go out on a footy field, we as a group, we want to win a premiership in the AFL. I don't want to win a premiership in district seconds, district force, right? There's plenty of people that want to play footy in district force or netball in district force or whatever, but we don't want to recruit them, right? I want to recruit the people who really want to win at the highest level. So now we're getting people who want to have a victory, right? We've got some people who want to rip raw flesh from the bone. Now we're getting the cattle. Now we're getting the right people. On the side, I've got my mechanisms to train them, and now I've got people who are more hungry than you can poke a stick at. So now you've got the right people, right? So once you think you've got the right people, then you've got to induct them the right way. So people go, oh, induction, what's that? Here's your seat. Here's some people, meet them, meet and greet. Great. Okay, here's a job. Our first day, even the first week, it's not about that. It's about understanding who we are as a group, what we stand for. I want them to learn our mission. I want them to understand our values intimately. So anyway, when they have that coffee test, they meet me, we have an interview, and I go through our cultural agreement in detail, in finite detail.
So you do it yourself?
I do it. You know why? Because there's got to be no confusion about where these rules are coming from. And if the business and culturally, if something suffers in there, I've got to wear that.
Yes.
The onus is on me to deal with, to wear that. And so if I'm going to take responsibility for that, well, I've got to be the one who meets them. And you know what? No one's too big for their britches that they can't meet someone who comes into an office. We're a team. Everyone's just as valuable. I hate people saying, oh, CEO. I've got a function. We all know what it is internally. I don't, but I suppose externally you sort of have to have an acronym somewhere. But for me, everyone's in a lane. Everyone has a responsibility. They all know what their deliverables are, and we can't work as a well-oiled machine and deliver our product if one cog is missing. Hence the sport test. So all these things are interlinked, right? So I go through the cultural agreement with them in detail. I explain how we developed it. I explain those 3 questions, how we come up with it. I explain our mission. I explain that 100% is outstanding. 99% is not outstanding. 99% is 99%. That's not outstanding. So I talk about these are our values. You know, our values are about, we want to be precise. We want to be considered. We want to be brave. We want to show integrity. We want, and we explain what all these words are. They're not just words. They're words that have a meaning that we stand by. And then I explain what the definition of leadership is. And so they're all right over there. There's more people coming in. So the definition of leadership, and I say to people, what do you think the definition of leadership is? Oh, to lead by example. I go, yeah, sort of. Leadership is aligning people. Leadership is aligning people around shared mission and shared values. And you can't be a leader in a business if your business doesn't have a mission and if your business doesn't have any values listed that people stand by, right? So it's about aligning people around shared mission and shared values and then teaching other people how to lead so that everyone benefits. We're talking about staff, team members, the business, stakeholders, suppliers. Everyone has to have a win. Everyone's got to get a drink at the trough. You can't, pardon the phrase, you can't shit on someone and then expect to sleep like a baby at night. You've got to, everyone can have a win. You don't have to be greedy. We can all have a victory, right? And I think that's really, really important too. And I think these conversations are so important because it really, it sets the framework for them in the boundaries that they need to work within. So let's say now they've had that, they sign off on that. They sign off on their IT policy. So there's rules around that. There's all phones go in a box. You come in 8:30, turn your phone off, it goes in a box. Now, when I talk at conferences, I hear that when I say that, the crowd goes, oh, geez, weird. And I say, anyway, question time, first question. Oh, just, Mike, that one about putting the phones in the box, we'd have a mutiny. So I just say, look, that's a pretty common response. So just give me one reason why the staff need their phone. And I'm all ears. Like, it's not about, hey, there's a rule that we can't change down the track. It's about, this is the rule. But if someone can see a reason why maybe the rule needs to be modified, we've got to be open to that. No one's ever delivered a reason why you would need your phone. They're a distraction. We want clients to ring through the office, so we've got a way to filter the call so that the right person gets the call. So there's a system and process for that. So the only people that need a phone really are the sales team. Okay. And when we had COVID, okay, people at home, that's a way of connecting. But now most people back in the office, the phones go in a box. So where was I? So there's rules around it.
The key thing why you've done that is you feel that is a distraction to the team member who needs to perform their role to be a part of the team, and the team needs to drive that success.
That's right. That's right. So I think you can have, first you got to know where your business is going to be. So you know who you need to employ, right? You need to know what skill sets you need. Do I need finders? Do I need minders? What do I need? Do I need connectors? What experience? But you don't know unless you've got a really clear mission and vision for your business. And I think a lot of people have to be very careful about what they wish for, because bigger's not better.
Yes.
People think cheap's better. It's not, could be a lot more expensive. So and I think people go into business, I want a big business so that I don't have to work. Well, if you don't get your infrastructure right, if you don't get these rules right, you're going to have a major problem. So you'll go big and then you collapse. Then you start again. You go big and you collapse. Right. You have dissection, you have division, and the devil is in the detail. So we sign off on all these agreements. The rules are crystal clear. Then they get inducted. right? But when they come into the office, the first day, there's a big sign with their name on it. We've got a simulator in our office because we want to have a bit of fun. And it's got a big wall. It's a projector, about 4 meters, and we have their name, welcome. You know, we put party pies on in the morning and we all get together and they give us 5 minutes. We introduce them to everyone as soon as they walk in the door, you know. They have their uniform before they come in. Their computer is set up before they come in. We're expecting them. They come in and we as a group are expecting them. We've got our arms wide open and they are going to be an important part of our team, and we make sure they know that. Right. So it's not about just putting someone in and they get to meet some people, they meet everyone, but they also get to see what we're about. They see the rhythms and routines we have as an organisation, then they're ready to go. So once they're in, it's about making that day spectacular. So our mission on that day one is, at the end of the day, we want them to go home and whoever they live with, they go, oh, you should see where I work.
Yes.
It's got to be outstanding. Everything comes back to outstanding, Paul. Yes. Everything has to be outstanding. How we speak to them, how we encourage them, how we endorse them, you know, how we focus on their strengths. So, and one thing, look, I've gotten better at, and look, hey, disclaimer, I'm not perfect, right? So we're all going to make some blues here and there. You know, I'm not perfect. I'll be the first to admit it. You know, the context I have it in, and now I've got kids, I just go, when my kids come to work, when they're old enough to work somewhere, if they work for you, Paul, if they work for any person on this call, I just want them to be really cared for. I want someone to really wrap their arms around, make them feel like they belong.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think as a parent, it changes your thinking a little bit. Yeah. So that's a real focus now. And so, mate, these guys in my office, they're like, we're like family. And so what do you want for family, right? What do you want for them? What I want for them is I want them to find their passion so they just have a great life. And it may not be in our organisation, but what I can offer them is structure, rhythm and routine so they see how a business should run. And that's my responsibility to them, and it's my responsibility to their parents, and it's my responsibility to their friends and the people that care for them, right? And I think if we have that context, suddenly all these problems go away about, oh, are they being honest with me? Are they going to try to stiff me? Are they taking the PI55? You know, are they actually working? Or they, you know, so it sort of removes a lot of that stuff people are in. So just in the last 2 weeks, I've had like 2 staff. Well, one guy rang me yesterday. He wants to get into law. I actually got him into a big international organisation because I know people there, and he's had interviews and it looks like he's going to get his law career going. You know, there's another group, another young bloke, he wants to get into planning and through clients, and I've been able to recommend him to a couple of people that were desperate, have been screaming out, so hey, here's a guy, he's a superstar. So yes, I'm going to lose quality, but it's not about us as a business. It's about looking after people, and that's where they want their life to go. And I've got a responsibility to them and their family to make sure they get there as quick as they can in the right manner, you know.
Yeah, I think the one thing that obviously been in the accounting industry for as probably long as that I have as well, and work with a number of firms as well that I have over the years, and whether it be here in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the US, parts of Asia, it still seems to be a constant battle with a lot of the firms of how they actually change some of that. And I think hopefully everyone that's on the line can listen to what Mike has done, and then even start thinking about what is, you know, I've written some key things out here. So one of the things that I've always hired for as well, hire for attitude, train for skill. Now, that could be a little bit different within a firm because obviously you've got to have that skill element to obviously do the work. But I think attitude is a major factor of that. And I think what you've been talking about there is so relevant because moving forward, we know, look, I talk to a number of firms every single day. Oh, we just lost Mike.
I'm back. Sorry.
That's all right.
I had no notifications on, but it came through. I don't know why it came through. Sorry.
All good. You've got the ability, because things have changed and for 2021, depending on where you are, but it's still we're still living in this COVID environment. So you got the ability to, instead of just saying, well, no, I'm just going to do the same old, try things differently. And that's probably the key things that I've heard you talk about, whether it be mission, whether it be the attitude, whether it be the coffee chats from an interview point of view. I love that because then you're getting to know the individual rather than the technical aspects of the person that you're looking to hire.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Like, you know me, right? And how I'm talking to you, I'm just trying to be me. I haven't got time to put on a facade and put, oh, you're the CEO. It sort of shocks me sometimes that people think they can't come into my office and go, mate, I'm just Mike. Come and talk to me.
Yeah.
Just relax. Because I think as soon as you remove the rubbish,
Yep.
we can be more candid. There's more transparency. But again, if you're getting the right people, that transparency exists. Now, look, this is an observation, and other firms could throw their two bob in, but the staff that I've gotten, I tend to recruit the students who are living on res at uni, right? So they start as casuals, then they migrate into a full-time role. So they generally give me 2.5 days a week initially because they're on res, they need some money because they've got to pay for their res and all that sort of stuff. Now, who are those people? I'll tell you who they are. They're kids. Some kids are, I shouldn't call them kids, they're young adults, but they come from farms where there's 300 people, 200 people. Now, if you live in a town that big and you carry on like a pork chop, mate,
they're going to tell you.
They're going to tell you, right? So that sort of crap's just not tolerated. And I think as you move into more dense environments, you can probably get away with a bit of rubbish, whereas, so I think that mentality and that ilk of people that we get has made the culture foster the way it has, because they actually genuinely care, and they've got their real small community feel of how do you help your neighbour and how do you reach out and help people. And I think, if you look at what most businesses do and you apply the stats of failure against them, 75% of businesses fail in the first 3 years. So why would you replicate a model around just outputs and crunching people? Now, that doesn't mean to say we don't have tight metrics. We do. I get a text message at 9 o'clock, 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock on our targets for the day, how we're tracking midway so we can adjust, and did we hit them at the end of the day? I know who's working in what lanes, when, and those texts come through at 9 o'clock. They don't come through at 9:01 or 8:59. They come up. So, these rhythms and these routines that people need to follow, I think people who leave their ego at the door are more adaptable to, hey, when I work here, these are the rules.
Yep.
Hey, I'm not going to bring in my ego and say, oh, this is how I've got to roll. No. And I just say to them when we sign that cultural agreement, listen, there's no gun cabinet here, right? I don't have a gun at your head. Do not sign this, but this will be the most important document you sign when you work here. But I don't have a gun at your head. So we've got a handshake on how we're going to behave. So if someone behaves outside of our value system, I've got a point of reference to have a conversation with them.
Yes.
Every day of the week.
Your comment just there, and I heard it, I think, last year with somebody else that maybe was on our shows as well, around a cultural agreement. Now that's really interesting. I want to have a chat about that. I know we've gone 12:27, but I also want to chat about what you do from an ongoing retention point of view. Someone like Taryn as an example. I know she's listening to this, but I reckon Taryn would get hit up every single week for a different role. Someone's trying to poach her. They have Frank for a very long time as well. What do you do, and what can you share with our listeners with regards to retaining? Because I think retention's a major part as you continue to grow, and the familiarity of the people. That's a major part. We know, I think years ago, when we did the studies, when I was coaching a lot of accounting firms, we did the studies back then, that the cost of replacing a team member was close to $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
And you work up all the costs and the loss of time and the management time and the induction time and the training time. I don't know if firms have done it, but it's a massive cost. What's the cost you put into retaining that individual though? Maybe share some of the stuff that you guys do at Seamless with regards to retention.
Yep. Well, firstly, people generally don't leave a job. They leave people. Okay. Right? They leave people. So if they don't like who they're working with, that's your first problem. I think when you look at a lot of practitioners, there's over 33,000 tax agents in the country, right? Now, of those practitioners, I don't know what I did have the status, not on me, but it's some enormous number that like 65% of the pool is occupied by about 10 firms now of revenue. So when you look at a lot of practitioners, generally they're circa 1 to 2 mil in size. And when you got a 2 mil, sorry, mate, hang on.
All good.
Sorry, I'm back. Someone's trying to ring me. I know he's trying to ring me. You just can't find me. He's my replacement for golf. So So what I was saying is that, what was I saying? It was
Retention.
retention. Yeah. Firms, right? So most firms are small. So unfortunately for those firms, they say, oh, gee whiz, if I lose Dan,
Yes.
I'm stuffed. So I have to make concessions. Oh, look, I know she's a pain. Oh, John, I know he's a pain. He gets in late. I know. Because just like you said, they know that the cost to replace that person is massive, right? So I think the approach for firms, retention is about, I don't have a retention program. Taryn gets hit up, and with the relationship we have, she says, oh, got hit up for a job today. She's transparent. She just tells me, and we have a giggle about it, right? But if I can provide an environment that she loves, and if we have a lot of fun, and with her, look, it's pretty easy to have fun. And then you look at the tank, Frank, right? Like, I mean, we become that close that we are so focused on winning and being a great business that we really go about in a really respectful way. I don't know why people would want to leave unless their career path isn't what we do. And if it's not what we do, I'll be the first person to go and find leads for them to get them a job, because I want them to pursue their passion. Like, it would be extremely selfish to keep good staff, which all of them are, off the back of, but I need them. Whereas what do they really need, So look, salespeople generally, if you get a salesperson on, and I think you've got to be clear on your product. Accountants don't put salespeople on because they don't know how to define their product. It's really hard for them in an elevator pitch to describe what their value proposition is. So they don't really know what they're going to go out and sell other than, oh, we're pretty good, we saved. So maybe they need to have a focus around things like, this has been our growth. We had this marketing campaign. We helped support a client with a marketing campaign, and this is what happened. We actually ran it could be around a business event where they help put process in. So a lot of this stuff I talk about, people could map this and sell it to each client for 20 grand a pop. So if you can put clear infrastructure and process, we've got systems and process where if the milk's getting low in the fridge, there's a process. They run it, goes bang. It says, it's got a photo of the address of the supermarket with directions that you can put on your phone. It tells you photos of the aisle, the different types of milk, how much of petty cash you take, and then how to fill out petty cash. It comes out in a process. People go, that detail. I go, yeah, that detail. Because I don't want to rely on people to remember, and then someone leaves and you've got a redundancy risk that now they've left and, how do you do this? We just don't have these problems, right? Yeah. Because we put a lot of time and effort into building those things. And so now we know we can scale to infinity because we've got the process and we've got the systems to do it. So I think firms needn't panic. Create an environment that the team love. Like, put some games in there, find out what their interests are. It might be dogs. Well, maybe have it so that you have a thing and they can bring their dog in and put it at work and they go out take it for. Why not? Yeah. Try it. What happens? What's the worst thing that can happen? They chew some wires. Okay. That costs us a couple of grand. We've got to replace that. But at least we had a go, and they can see as an employer, people are really interested, and firms are interested and care. And it's actually not hard.
And you just used a word there that I would talk about, and I think there's, I know it's only been 40 odd, sort of 40 odd minutes, but the word that I was going through my brain is the care factor. And I think that is something that you actually care about. One, you spoke about right up front about getting to know the person. What's important to them, not about what's important to us. What's important to them. To be fair, it's always a bit of a sales process. A consultative sales process is all about you, not me. So
that's right.
That's the sort of process that you've adopted and around the cultural agreements and making sure that you've got that shared vision, shared alignment, I suppose, which is, again, to everyone listening, hopefully there's a number of key things there that you're taking note of. Now, I just want to stop there for a second, mate. I know there's probably other things that I want to go through, but Danny, I know there's, to all of us that are on the line, I know in the Q&A, there's not a lot of Q&A, but I know there are questions in the chat line. There's some things there that we'd like to address before we let people go, and certainly let Mike go. Mate, what time's your tee off?
No, I'm not. Just the guy who's replacing me is ringing. He doesn't know where I am, but he'll work it out. He's a big boy.
Okay, cool. So are there any questions there that we can, because I know I saw one from Ian. There was another one there from, sorry, I'm just looking at these because there's a lot of good chat. So thank you very much to all of us.
So there's Gisela, there's Ian. What have we got there?
Yeah, there's one there. So if you have a passion, if you have passionate people, I just got taken down the line, and they can often disagree on what is the right way.
Yeah.
What is your process or rules for managing conflict?
That's great. Great question. Well, this is the rule. Generally, conflict happens because someone has a different opinion or a different expectation on how to do something. Generally, that's like if we want to get somewhere, someone has a different opinion on how we get there. Or in doing an accounting function, two people might have a different opinion on how you should get to that outcome, right? So what's that come down to? It comes down to system and process. Now, our rule is this: you only get one warning if you don't follow a system and a process once. Now, that doesn't mean the system or process and your opinion isn't valued, but just don't go and do what you think you should do, because they may not know what happens in 6 or 7 steps after that process. They don't know what they're detonating down the track, right? So particularly people who've been in industry for a while, they have a way of doing things, right? They've got certain behaviors, they're probably a bit fixed in their ways. And we just bring them in and say, listen, we have a way of doing it. We believe it's best practice, but we are open to changing it. But I can't measure why there is a problem if you go and just do your own thing and don't follow the process. I don't know if what you're doing is better than the process, so we should change the process, or the process is better and you're just doing your own thing and stuffing everything up. I don't know, right? So we have a very clear rule when everyone's employed. If you don't follow the process and do your own thing, I only warn you once. And after that, you'll wonder why there's a box on your table with your name on it, all right? Because then I explain why. I said, if you stuff things up and our business suffers, it affects everyone around you. It affects our customers. It affects our suppliers. If we shrink, that's the impact it has, right? It affects the salespeople who are incentivized to pick up more work, and they lose clients because you're butchering files, right? So there's always a why. So the answer to the question is have a very clear rule and have why. People have to understand the why. You can't just tell people this is how I want you to do this. People don't respond well to that. They just need to know why we do that. Like when you're in the office, don't sit on the pool table. Why? Because it affects people's ability to play pool because the ball starts rolling to one side because everyone sits on the same side. Don't sit on it, right? You clean up after us. We don't have cleaners in our office, right? We clean our own office. Why? Because our values are respect. One of them is respect. So if you know you're the one that could be, they spin a wheel, it's hilarious. They spin a wheel and put everyone's names on it and you get assigned a task. Mate, if you're the vacuum man for the week, every night vacuum, you don't want to be making a mess, right? So handling conflict, just have a chat like you would your family member, like your kids. And sometimes they need a foot in the bum, right? They've got chocolate all over their face and they say, no, I didn't eat the chocolate. It wasn't me. They did, right? But then there's got to be a consequence. So we set our own consequences, and there are. You have to have rules, and there has to be consequences if they break the rules, and there's got to be rewards if they it's common behaviour, right? If people can break the rules and they just get away with it, well, they don't respect the rules. So that's how we handle conflict. Yeah.
Great question. Great answer. I was about to say.
You got another one? You got another question? Or
You got another one? You're on mute there, so I'll have a look at. Yeah, I've got one from Gisela. I was about to call you Giselle then, and I was going to go down the Tom Brady route, but I won't do that, although I've just done it. Gisela's just asked, what tools do you use to track the metrics?
Yep. So we had a purpose-built platform. Okay. So we do over 12,500 funds, and look, by any we'll probably be around 15,000. There's a lot of work, and people say that's a big. We're high volume, low margin business, so we've got a lot of transactions. How do you manage that, right? Everything's automated. So before you go and scale, you've got to make sure you build the right systems and processes to be able to scale into. You have to have the ability to do triple of what you think you would do, and know you can scale into it without causing a problem. Because what the bigger problem, I think one of the mistakes a lot of businesses make is they're looking at their margin. Geez, we're tracking at 30%. Oh, we can't really afford to put another person on. But then when all the new work comes in, everyone's stretched. So now you can't build a new process, you can't induct new staff. Suddenly you're on the back foot. You just don't have capacity, right? And the capacity is the key. You want to have a successful business, you have to have capacity. So we always make sure we've got at least 3 people capacity. You know, always have 3 people capacity. You've got to be able to tap into that, because if we know we've got to build something to manage a change in regulation, or we're going to pick up big clients, we're going to know we can respond Johnny on the spot. And I think, so our platform, it tells me everything. It tells me how many funds people have loaded. It tells me how many days they're with us. It tells me how long they've been in the system. It tells me what stage they're up to. It tells me who has them. I can export it. I can filter it to client. I can filter it to me overall. And then, yeah, I can see what time management, I can see how many units a staff member produces on the prep side. I can see how many funds they review. I can see who's on projects. So every day I get a text and I know who's working on what projects, how long they will take, everything. And these things didn't happen overnight, right? These things take time. And I think people focus on the growth before they get their infrastructure ready.
Yeah, fair.
You know, yeah.
Do you while you built your own infrastructure or your own sort of platform, I know even here at C2 we sort of go back to spreadsheets because it's easier.
Yes, yeah.
Did you was there anything that you were using prior to what you ended up sort of moving forward with?
Yeah, well, we were using Microsoft Workflow. It was it was what was it? It was I don't know the name of it exactly, but I can let you know and you can send it to people.
Yeah, sure.
And it was no good, right? When I had 300-400 funds, I could manage, but it was just a nightmare. Then what we did was we moved to a platform called Asana.
Yep.
But it had a lot of manual movement. So we created all these stages so we could see yet to start and put all jobs in there. We had in progress, queries responded, in review, queries with the client. So then we could see what's with the client, when it's with us, when it's with them. But then we had to manually move it and we had to tag it so that what the client could see, they could only see their funds. And so then we could see everyone's. So if someone didn't connect, suddenly the whole workflow was stuffed. So it was okay till about 3,000 funds, but then we got to build something. So then we just engaged an IT developer and built our own platform. But now that does our billing, it does our documents, it does everything, right? So we've got 2 people to manage this scale, and we would probably need, we could double and probably need 1 more person on the admin side,
Yep.
So it's build infrastructure first, have capacity, don't grow, just don't grow. Build your infrastructure first, ask lots of questions, what are other people doing, then formulate what your target market is, and then think from the market's point of view, what problem are you going to solve for them? Yeah. Like, don't tell them you're a tax expert. They don't give a stuff. They don't care if you're 20 years in the game. They couldn't care, right? They want to know how you're going to fix their problem. So what is their 3 most common problems? The reason I do these presentations at conferences is because this is one of their problems. So if people can get this right in their organization, go and sell this. You will be saving them, right? They will treat you like you're God, because people are their biggest problem. How to put process in is their biggest problem. How to make people accountable is their biggest problem. How to reward people is their biggest problem. So, and look, I'm happy to have conversations with people, but for clients, I'll help them, right? Because if our clients grow, if accounting firms grow, we grow with them. So we're invested in their growth, in their success.
Yep.
So that's the trick, I reckon, mate.
Look, it's 12:52. There's a couple of things I just want to leave everyone with now. I suppose, again, working with accounting firms, I've always been a big systems and process person as well. So I love it and I get what you have. Firms also, listening right now, will also have systems and processes. How often do you review them and improve them?
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a good question. I think a lot of people have systems and processes, and if you want to find them, just look in their bottom drawer and blow the dust off, right? So our systems and processes are live. We can track them. So we see, and they automatically trigger. So when X happens, there's an API and it pulls the process, bang, it puts the person's name, it puts the job on it. And so there's a process. So it's about trying to get from A to Z without an error. So what we do is we just listen intently to clients. We listen intently to what they're saying, what's changing. So we've got a team. There's a person who is responsible for those processes. So if ever there's a change, it only goes through one avenue. No one else has rights to change a process. They can't access to change a process. It always goes through one person. And the biggest tip I can give people is, and a mistake firms make is they say, oh, Catherine or John, look, we need a process for this, and we leave it to them. Leave it to them. We don't review it. We don't check that it actually works. We don't then collaborate and get other people to test it to see if they can see it might be missing a stage, right? What we do is we empower someone and we blow their ego to the size of Mars, where they go, oh, that's my process. So now we have this problem where if there is a problem down the track with the process, we have to deal with someone's ego that we've got to change the process. And this is a big problem. This becomes a big problem. So our rules are this. If someone has an idea around a process that we need, okay, we draft it. So we just do a skeleton: head, shoulders, chest, pelvis, knees, feet. All right. Is there any stage we're missing in this? Then we go, okay, let's put some more slots in. Okay, let's put some vertebra in. Let's put some more bones on this. Right now then we flesh it out. Right, we get more people, and so then we test it. So we test it, and then I sign off on it. I always approve it, because you know what? If a process fails and it stuffs the business, I'm accountable. And I think there's a lot of principles in businesses, they just don't have time. They don't have time. Why are you seeing clients, or why are you doing sales if you've never been trained in sales? Like, the key to your business to scale it is to make sure we have really quality processes. And if you don't even know what those processes are, you got no control over your business. You got none. The only way I know my business works and that I can relax is that I know it's in control. The moment I feel it's out of control, I step in and we review a process. That people know in their waters there's something not right. So I think the first step is write down all the parts, walk around the office, and when you look at someone, what was the last conversation you had with them? And it'll tell you in your gut, hang on, I reckon there's something wrong with the process that we're working on. And just list them all down, and then you can start to fruit pick which ones are the most important ones to start with, that give you the biggest bang for buck, biggest impact, and then assign them to a team and get a team to work on it. Okay, so allocate time so they can actually do it, and then have a timeline. You got to have timelines when it's due, otherwise shit never happens. Like that process will never come back. So you got to have a timeline, and if they don't put it on your desk at 4 o'clock on the dot that day, then you go and say, hey, what's our values are integrity, respect. I'm waiting for that at 4 o'clock on that day, and it's now 4:01. People go, oh, 4:01, that's a bit harsh. Well, why say 4 o'clock then? Okay. 4:01, may as well be 6 o'clock. Hey, let's just make it next week. Yeah. You've got to have a rule, right? Yeah. You've just got to have it. And so I tend to give people enough rope, and I just hope they don't hang themselves. And generally they don't, Yeah. People generally don't, because you just got to be direct with them and say, not good enough. It's a team thing. So that's how we do it, if that answers their question.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, mate, I've probably got a lot more to go through, but
you can always do another one and pick up on
exactly. It has gone 12:56, so I think we'll. I might handball back to Danny to wrap up. But look, from my point of view, again, hopefully, so many little nuggets in there that everyone can take away and sort of look at, even if if you want to re-look at all of your stuff. The great part is today's February the 12th. So we've got the ability to start of a calendar year. I've always said, there's two opportunities to re-look at our whole business structure, and that's the start of the calendar year and the start of the financial year. So you've got the ability, everyone that's on the line now, if you're an owner of business, you've got the ability to do this. And more importantly, like Mike said, you can actually start talking to clients about this as well, because that's where certain value comes into the value chain of what you do as an accountant. So hopefully there's a lot of there to take it away. Thank you for everyone that's commented in our chat bar. There is a shitload of stuff in the chat bar, which I can't even get to. But thank you, everyone. I want to hand over to Danny, because I'm out of here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Mike, as always, it's always amazing to hear from you. And as people are saying here, you've got amazing energy, and absolutely fantastic. So many gems for people to take away. I've had a lot of people actually messaging me privately asking for the recording of the event. So if anyone would like it, feel free to email me or make contact with Paul, and we'd be happy to share that with you.
I promised I did hit the record button, because last time I did this, I forgot to hit the record button. We've definitely got it recorded, so we'll have it online pretty shortly. So,
so reach out to all three of us, or Taryn, whoever your contact is, and we'll be happy to share that with you. But everyone, keep an eye out. We've got lots more events coming up. We've got our Chewing the Accounting Fat, which we do once a month. and our virtual lunch with many guests, much like Mike, adding valuable information to you all. So
I'll just touch on that before everyone leaves us. Chewing the Accounting Fat, our first show for 2021 is on February 26th, 12:30 p.m. Melbourne time. We're going to be interviewing the head of public practice for CPA. So she's going to be joining us. Anyone that knows Kitty Wallace, head of public practice and SME, they released a report in 2019 called My Firm, My Future. And there was a supplementary to that last year. We're going to delve deep into that and talk about My Firm, My Future, whether you're a CA, CPA, IPA, doesn't matter. But there's some great data that came from that. We're going to delve into that and obviously share some more information that you guys can take away. So Feb 26, you'll get an invite anyway, but I thought I'll just give you a pre-framer to that. So Mike McHenry, from my point of view, thanks, buddy.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
everyone, bye, Mike.
See you later. Bye, mate.
See you later,
Ta-ra,
everyone.
guys.